Know how we are here in Houston. Every year we forget just how hot it can get here after a few cool days. Well, you probably need to think twice before cranking up that thermostat this year. It could cost you way more. I asked an expert how to keep the energy bills down this summer.
So what would your advice be to people out there who are looking for cheaper rates when it comes to energy at their home?
Well, your overall bill is what folks are mostly concerned about, and it's a function of not just the rate that you're paying, but it's also how much you're consuming. So it's probably the best case is to try to attack this on both sides of the equation to reduce your consumption so you can get your bill down a little bit lower, and really being proactive in terms of finding good overall renewal plan rates if you can find them. So there are a number of people that unfortunately are in for a bigger surprise because they may have been on a variable rate or a holdover rate. So some of those folks may be paying close to 20 cents a kilowatt hour by the time it's all said and done. So there's going to be pretty significant increases, I think, that everyone's seeing. And, we're seeing that in the entire energy complex. We're seeing it across fuels, and natural gas is one of the big drivers of how we produce our electricity here in Texas, and those prices have gone up, quite dramatically over the course of the last 6 months. So it's been difficult for people to digest that. But first things first, getting out and informing yourself and trying to get a lay of, who's out there, what plans are available. Some of what we've seen recently is some providers are really interested in keeping their customers, so they may be providing some plans that are pretty cost effective relative to what you might see in the open market to try to retain some of their people. But there's the same kinds of caveats that I've spoken about before and that you might have heard in the market. Is there's so many plans right now that are kind of gimmicky. Like if someone says it's going to be 14 cents on an all-in basis, that might be a little bit low compared to what really is going on there, even as numbers are as high as those are, because it might be some kind of gimmicky plan that's free nights and weekends that doesn't really ever kind of turn out like you think you're going to get it. So folks really need to pay attention. Generally speaking, look for fixed price plans. Try not to, one of the things that we're seeing right now is a lot of providers are trying to put these plans out there that are lower cost, that are like 3 and 5 year plans. And I don't think that that's really a good idea from what we're seeing. The indication is that electricity prices and these fuel costs and these other inputs should be lower in the future. And so getting yourself into a long-term transaction right now may not be in your best interest over the course of the next 3 to 5 years.
Now, Jesson, what I've done over the last 2 to 3 years is try to turn my home into a smart home. And I noticed a significant decrease in the amount I'm paying for electric every month. Obviously, everyone can't go out there and do that at the same time, but I see a significant difference. When I leave, my Google turns off the air conditioner, and when I approach the house through GPS and all of that, it starts coming on again. So I see the potential for people to save money if they look at trying to turn their home into a smart home without the old greedy light bulbs, that we used to have. There are a lot of options out there.
That's 100% right. And that's a great place to start. Reducing your overall consumption is going to probably give folks the biggest bang for their buck right now in today's environment. And there's all those solutions that run from the really high-end smart home types of technologies. And even some of that's much more accessible and much less expensive than it used to be, all the way through to really simple things like you suggested. We don't really pay attention. If we haven't changed out your light bulbs to LED light bulbs, that's something you probably need to do sooner rather than later. The reduction in your consumption is unbelievably large. That's a simple thing to do. Another thing that people tend to not pay attention to is, when you're in this, we have our summer times here in Houston and in Texas where, it gets so unbelievably warm. We had this earlier in the year. A lot of people don't do the checkups on their HVAC system. And so having a system that's not working properly can consume way more electricity than it should be. So not only does it have to be tuned up and making sure that you have the appropriate amount of Freon and refrigerant in the system, but even much simpler things like changing out the air filters. They'll make those systems run so much more efficiently, and it'll reduce your overall costs. Simple things like, hey, if you're not going to be in a room for a period of time, close the shades, close the drapes, try to prevent too much heat getting into your house. It's going to make a big difference. And so all these things will add up to reducing what you would otherwise spend, because you're really going to make a big impact on your consumption.
Do it, guys. You will save a lot of money.